everybody. I'm Lori Jo Vest. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 4 of Rev and Reach. And today's subject is you versus your customers. And the thing that we find really interesting in that clickbait title is that we run into a lot of situations where clients really want to serve what they want more than serving what their customers or their prospects want when it comes to social media. So you might be looking at somebody who, I'll give you an example, and I think this is a really good one. Dentists. We love our dental clients. And sometimes we have to rein them in because they like to share the things that dentists like to look at. And some of it's not so great. The before and after photos where you look at the Instagram feed and all you see is the before photos and it's a little frightening. We love that transformation, but when it comes to social media, people want to see the finished smile. They want to see how wonderful that person looks now. Then if they want to, they can go peek at how bad they used to look, I guess is what I'm going to say here. So Kylie, tell us a little bit more about why it's so important to turn your ego aside and dig into what your customers want.
I think the biggest reason is that it's obvious. And when a somebody that's in your customer base or an audience member has been paying attention, they can tell what content is for them and what content is for you. When you haven't done your research
Yeah.
and when you're not really paying attention to what type of content it is that your audience wants to see and that they find valuable, you're losing people. You're losing followers, you're losing prospects, you're losing potential sales. So doing that research, being very intentional about it, and then crafting your content towards, what the research says will work and, what your
Mhm.
consumer behaviors indicate is what they're interested in is so important, not just for ROI, but for building that bridge and that connection between you and your audience so they feel valued and like you're paying attention.
Absolutely. And they won't respond if you are, for example, if you are a 30-year-old woman with young children and the person who's creating marketing content for you is a 45-year-old single man, that can be a little challenging. However, it's worth the effort. Don't make assumptions. We see a lot of cases where you've got a marketing team making assumptions about what the audience likes or doesn't like. In reality, research will tell you what they like and what they don't like. There's a lot of digital tools out there you can use, and there's a lot of value in even using some of the AI tools that are out there now to see, what is your audience doing? Where are they going? What are they reading? What are they ingesting? What are they really hot about? What trends are they on? So that when you are crafting content for your brand or your company, you are thinking as if you were them, not necessarily, you and what you want to show them, right?
Exactly. I think a really good example of that we've seen before is, people love content that's like the faces behind the brands, right? Behind the
Yes.
scenes and things like that.
Yes.
It should be your baseline of content and it shouldn't be the majority of what you're pushing out. And here's why. As fun as it might be to be in charge and have the reins to the brand's social media
It's
channels,
fun.
and oh, like your boss brought in donuts today, or oh, you're dressing up for Halloween and how fun. As fun as it might be to share those things, and it is sometimes, like it's a very easy thing to throw on your Instagram story for extra views,
Yeah.
on a given day. It shouldn't be a part of your regular marketing mix. That
Yeah.
sort of behind the scenes oh, like a day in the life with donuts and with, oh, we're matching and, things
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
because your audience doesn't care. It
Yeah.
serves them no purpose. It might, if they know you personally, like Lori's example of the dental clinics, oh, oh, that's my favorite hygienist. And
Yeah.
oh, how cute, things like that. It's fun. It builds that bridge. It helps, kind of connect the audience to what you guys do on a daily basis. However, it does not do anything for inclining a
Yeah.
new prospect to choose your brand.
Yeah.
Whatever your industry is, it does not serve any purpose to why a
Mhm.
given audience member should choose you. And ultimately, that's how we get ROI, by
Yeah.
persuading prospective customers and new consumers that you are the best at what you do. You should be their selection, and that you're worth their dollars, your
Yeah.
audience's dollars, right? Because ultimately, you're selling something, and
Yeah.
everybody's dollars are precious. So why should any audience member trust that what you are offering them will improve their life?
Right. I've got to say now, some of the things that we're referencing here happen more commonly in small to mid-sized businesses where
Mhm.
social media is still seen as, my college kid's roommate has a great Instagram channel for their, you know, lure tying business or whatever. And so he should do the social media for our business. When in reality, or maybe just the front desk. Maybe it's a doctor's office and they say, oh, we'll let the front desk do the social. Take a picture of a
Mhm.
patient, oh, look, we have this really cool little puppet we use, or doesn't the lobby look pretty today? Look at our Christmas tree. And you have people doing your social media that aren't marketers. And
Mhm.
when you are looking for ROI from digital marketing, you can't just hand the reins over to the youngest person on the team because they have a really cool Instagram channel of for their personal stuff, or to someone who is doing it as kind of an afterthought. Because when you do those two things, you are guaranteeing you will get no ROI from your social media, because ROI requires thought. And one of the biggest things to think about is what your audience wants to know. What do they want? Not, maybe what they need can be sprinkled in there, but what they want is more important. And let's talk about that, Kylie. One of the things, and you'll hear us say this over and over because I feel like we're constantly reminding people, your audience is full of human beings that are biologically driven for connection. So right off the bat, smiling faces, right? We have a client right now that's material handling, and we use photos of their technicians. We don't just show the equipment. We show the people, the sales reps share things. It's just awesome. It's all people. So that serves the audience, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a really good point to make, and a really important distinction. There is a difference between, oh, the fun donut content that I mentioned
Yeah.
earlier,
Yeah.
and using the faces, using the happy people behind the brand, or the happy customers
Mhm.
in a way that does serve the audience. And
Yes.
like Lori said, we've said it before, we'll probably say it in most of our
Yep.
episodes
Yep.
here, that content with smiling faces,
Yeah.
and not stock images, real smiling faces that are somehow involved in the community of your brand, perform, I mean, so much better
Yeah.
than all other types of content, better than graphic content, stock images, anything of the sort. Smiling faces is the way to go. And there's a way to use those and prioritize them in your regular mix,
Mhm.
that will serve your audience and will continue to build that bridge, but also indicate to them why whatever it is that you're selling is something that is going to improve their life, or
Right.
whatever it is that, like, we'll go back to the dental example, why receiving this new smile will improve their overall quality of life
Mhm.
every day for the rest of their life. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
there's so many ways. No matter, you could throw any industry at us, I think, at this point,
Mhm.
and we would be able to give you an example of how to build your content in a way that serves your audience versus serving what you think is fun, or, as Lori said, what the youngest person on your team thinks is trending on
Yeah.
TikTok, and why somebody might think it's funny. They might think it's funny, but they're probably not going to buy your product or service
Yeah.
because you made a funny TikTok.
Yeah. It's
It's
not.
it's really is the difference between social media and social media marketing,
Yeah.
which is another thing that we say pretty regularly.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to repeat ourselves a lot, but hopefully, we kind of want to spread the word on how to do it right. And one of the reasons that I think it's so important is because there are so many people that do social media by having just an afterthought, or the college kid or the youngest person on the team or the lowest budget,
Mhm.
when they do that, they come back to us and say, social media doesn't work. Oh, you aren't doing it right. And I'm not saying there's a
Right.
right way to do it because there isn't. There's a lot of ways to do it. However, there's a right way to do it for your brand or your product that will help you get results. I'm very confident in saying that. I don't know any business that I can think of the top of my head that would be not appropriate on social media because there's just so much you can do, you know.
Mhm.
So let's talk a little bit about the Story Brand book, Kylie. You mentioned it
Mhm.
before we got on this recording that it's an amazing book that basically turns you into a person who in your copy and content will look out for your customer as opposed to just providing them with what you think they like. It's just a makes a great case. Tell us more about that. We did it in a book club at our company.
Yeah, in our company book club, I think it was one of the first books we read actually. It may have been just the second. And it really, I would say it changed the way that I write social
Mhm.
media copy and think about social media copy for all of our clients. And I spend a lot of time doing our Pop Speed digital marketing's social media and a lot of our internal marketing,
Mhm.
and change the way I think about that as well. And I think that it's building a story brand, I believe, and
Mhm.
I highly, highly recommend it. It's been one of my
Mhm.
favorites that we've read. Um, and it basically kind of outlines this template, this step-by-step process of getting your social media marketing, and really your overall digital marketing to a place where you are serving your audience first and foremost. I won't spoil the template. You'll have to read the
Yeah.
book. But it does provide a very regimented step-by-step
Yeah.
guide on how to get there, which we all found very helpful
Yeah.
because it's so easy for us to sit here and say, right? You need to tailor your content to your audience and you need to pivot how you're doing A, B, and C.
Blah blah blah.
Exactly. Without a step-by-step guide on how to do that, which is not something that we can cover in a 30-minute podcast episode, it's really hard and it's really daunting. This book, again, I'll repeat myself once again, really changed the way that we do things. And it changed the way that we view each of our clients' audiences, right?
Mhm.
So for us, it's a little different than just being an internal social media manager for one specific brand. We have 15 to 20 audiences that we
Mhm.
need to think about on a daily
Yep.
basis. So it forced us to pull our brains out of, oh, for, today I'm going to write and create content for this particular client. Let me get in their headspace and into their voice. To now we're, okay, let me get in the frame of mind of their audience
Mhm.
as opposed to speaking the voice of the brand, which is important. Each brand
Mhm.
has a voice and it's important to maintain that consistency. However, now our writing is really tailored and really focused to, okay, based on, what did well last month and what consumers seem to be interested in as of late or what time of year it is, what do we
Mhm.
think that our audience needs to hear today?
Mhm.
And really using that sort of benchmark in the way that we create content, whether it's
Mhm.
writing or, if we are creating graphics or if we're planning fundraising events for our nonprofit clients. Pretty much from A to Z of the digital marketing work that we do for each of our clients, because of that book, I think our energy and our focus is set towards our
Mhm.
audiences now, which I think is so important. And I
Yeah.
think we've seen big upticks. I think our dental implant client is a prime example
Mhm.
of the that we've seen increases in leads, and really qualified leads as well, since we've started crafting our content specifically with them in mind.
Mhm.
Lori alluded to it earlier. I think it's really important that client. It's just it's such an easy example for us to pull from all the
It
time
is.
because it encompasses all of our best tips in
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
single industry, really. But for them, it's, we go back to what we talked about in episode 1, where you see so many people, whether it's dentists or in the healthcare space or, cosmetic or aesthetic surgeries and things of that nature, where if you're the doctor or if you're the healthcare professional, of course you got into it because you're fascinated by the medical aspect of this, right?
Mhm.
What you need to keep in mind when you're creating your content is that nobody else is. And the
Yeah.
majority of people are probably a little bit grossed out by the behind the scenes of what it
Yeah.
is you do every day and
Yeah.
don't care to see it.
Yeah.
What they want to see is the end result that will improve their quality of life, which I just,
Yeah.
again, there's a million examples and we could pull from any industry, but this one just makes our lives too
Yeah.
easy with
Yeah.
with the connections.
Yeah, I'm gonna add to this because I think it's so important. It just the story brand advice, some of it included being a guide for your client to help them get the results that they want. And that piece right there is so important, I would say, in marketing, in sales, in customer service. The way you get and keep a client, keep them loyal and happy, is by figuring out what they need and want and guiding them to getting that end result. And that's what you're doing. So, for example, if you're a dentist, we keep talking about them, but again, they're such an easy example. If
Mhm.
you're a dentist, people want people who are having problems with their teeth or in pain, they want to know that you know about that you know that it's hard to go to a dentist because you know it's going to hurt. So you may do some content around pain relief and easing their
Mhm.
fears. They also want to know that what you do is going to be done, they're going to be treated well. There's proof in the form of testimonials, right? They want to know that it's going to
Absolutely.
look amazing and that it's going to be custom for them, that it's not going to be just some big thing stuck in there that doesn't look right. Again, testimonials, happy smiles of the patient after they've had the process, right? So basically looking at what that customer needs and being able to guide them through the process of getting their desired end result, not yours, theirs. Yours is that they buy. Theirs is that they get that brand new smile, that they get to have an amazing experience as a volunteer, that they got to contribute with a donation. I mean, their desires are not the same as yours.
Mhm.
So that's where we get this, you versus your customers or you versus your clients kind of thing, because in a lot of cases we've had, especially, again, small to mid-sized businesses where the ownership may not be tuned in to that, sales and marketing aspect of running a business. Maybe they got into business because they are really good at making, designer suits or making, they design suits and do them custom for people. And that's amazing. And so they are so focused on that they don't think they should ever have to do a coupon. They don't think they should ever have to. And what that is getting stuck in your ego. And that creates that
Mhm.
us versus the customer or you versus the customer attitude. And that can't be there
Mhm.
because you want something they have, money. And in order to
Exactly.
to convince them to give it to
Exactly.
you, you've got to prove to them that you're worth it, right? And that you're going
I
to help
think
them.
I think that's such a good point too, and it really ties this whole episode together because it is your content should from the rear view, from your point of view, be laid out as a win-win situation.
Yeah.
You're making money off of your customers. Obviously, that's why any business in the world
Yep.
exists, to make money. We get it. But let your customers know what they are getting out of it.
Yeah.
It is about them so you can make the money on your side.
Yep. That's what it is. So it's not you what you do. What I would say is instead of us versus them, you go around to their side and see what you would want from you,
Mhm.
in order to get good topics and also strategy, just going back to the age old advice. Your audience research should be a huge part of planning for what you do in social. I mean, Kylie, tell us a little bit about the kind of research you do for our strategies, because I know you're deep in that right now. What is the what kind of research do you do and where do you find it?
I would say a brunt of the research, there's so much research that goes into a strategy, but the most time consuming aspect is that audience research. First and foremost, especially when we're kind of diving into a new industry that we might not be totally familiar with, is we want to know age demographics. We want to know, is it more tailored to males or females? Who's more likely to be interested? We want to know location. Where is it extra hot? and where do we really want to target, if whether that, obviously applies to if it's not a local business.
Mm-hmm.
But things of that nature, really researching who our target audience is, and then completing the research of how the best, like what the best ways to reach them are, whether they're primarily on Facebook, whether, if it's a younger audience, maybe they're mostly on TikTok, whether or
Mm-hmm.
not YouTube will be a good place for them, Twitter, even Twitter X, excuse me, same thing at this point. But just the right way to reach them and who they are, and then that puts us in a position to build content that not only will reach them but will entice them.
Mm-hmm.
Um i we've been using a new, it's an AI system, but it's really good at kind of streamlining the research process, and it provides qualified sources.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been using that quite a bit. Honestly, with reputable sources, um really just putting in the time in Google
Mm-hmm.
searches is helpful.
Yeah.
Doing research on individual platforms is helpful. um Places like HubSpot or Hootsuite very often have great articles on
Mm-hmm.
who to reach, why to reach them, where to reach them, everything like that. So it's time consuming, but I think results speak for themselves, right? If
Right.
you put in the time and energy to research your audiences in the strategy phase before you've really kind of jumped in head first into the content creation standpoint, you'll be amazed by how much time and
Mm-hmm.
stress and annoyance it'll save you once you're in that publishing content phase.
Yeah.
Because you've done the work, you know who your audience is, you know how to reach them, you know what they want to see. And of course, will you be pivoting along the way? Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Could your audience grow? Of course. Will behaviors change? Yeah, they change every day. But when you have that baseline and that foundation of research because you've put in the time, it makes the world of a difference
Mm-hmm.
to really launch yourself and launch your efforts and initiatives off in that story brand, sort of your audience comes first mindset, as opposed to trying to pivot and get there along the way once you've already started.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for spending that time up front. And then I
Hmm.
would add to that the during phase. Like when you are, don't just throw the content out there and just keep throwing it out there and not going back to see what works and what doesn't. And
Hmm.
always be open to trying new things because your audience may be into some trend right now that you can jump on that could be fun, or they may
Hmm.
not. Don't jump on the wrong trends. But there's something to be said for having a test and learn to see on an ongoing basis which audiences respond. If you're using Meta, you can target, age groups, you can target special interests that are maybe aligned or related to your audience. There's a lot you can do to reach the right people and also kind of change your messaging, experiment with video versus stills, with carousels, with different calls to action, with different types of art, different, maybe it's, smiles, maybe it's, really bold, colorful graphics. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to get attention and pay attention to that back end to see
Hmm.
what does better. And what we found, again, here we go. We have a client that is 100% organic right now. We don't recommend it. We do not recommend it, right? We're still working, trying to get them to get a little budget. But what we see is sometimes exponentially, like 8 to 10 times more people impressions on the content that has photos of their team versus anything else, testimonial graphics,
Hmm.
anything else that we do for them. When it's real and it's their people, it gets, exponentially more impressions. So those are the kind of things that if you pay attention to them, you will reach more of your audience. So I think that's
Hmm.
what we've got. We're coming up on 27 minutes here, Kylie. So we've given a lot of information today, which I'm really happy to do. It's kind of why we're here. Please know that we are a small agency that is growing and taking on new clients. So if you are interested in hearing more about us, you can visit our website at popspeeddigital.com. There's a contact form so you can get in touch. I am also an open networker on LinkedIn, and I think Kylie, you are too. So connect with us there. We'd be happy to give you, to do a half-hour audit of your social media presence, just free, no obligations, just to talk through what you're currently doing and what you might do that would make it better. So that's what we've got for you today. We will talk to you again soon.